a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't tend to work very much with presets. You know, because I think they can be a little bit mind blowing. Sometimes you'll go on there and there's, you know, you'll open up a brand new synth from someone like, you know, like Arturia or something like that, and there's like a million presets by a million different people, and you know, they've all got these crazy names, you know, and in your head you know what you're looking for, but it can take so long and so much flicking to just go up, you know, plus and minus on things to go through the programs. It can take forever. So I really like to start with just really plain simple sounds and then work them up into presets. So one of my favourite ones that I use is ES1, which is obviously just a standard Logic. You know, a standard Logic synth. So I think we'll go for something quite, you know, quite chordal maybe, like quite a funky little. I like. I'm going to stick the quantize onto Guru's swing. We'll just re-quantize that so it locks in with the swing. So we'll go with that. Now, I'm kind of really anal with things. A lot of people like the kind of whole, you know, they like things to sound really live, so they'll leave the different velocities and stuff like that, but I'm kind of really OCD about these kind of things. So I always like to make everything to sort of, you know, everything sort of match up lengthwise and everything to be really sort of really tight and very computery. I suppose, you know, we've spent so long designing these things so that we can make everything really accurate. So I kind of want to use that to its full potential. So what I always do is, say with a riff like this where it's kind of really sort of choppy, I want to get everything the right length. So if you just grab one of the notes and hold down Alt Shift, it instantly grabs all of the parts and then turns them to equal length. So you can just grab all the keys there. I'm going to move that one forward because I'm not really happy with that. That's better. And the same goes for the velocities. Like for this particular sound, hold down Alt Shift after you've highlighted them, and if you just click on one, they all follow and become the same, all the same colour and all the same velocity. ATFC showed me those keys, so cheers Aiden, thank you. And then what I'll do is I'll start to play around with the sound a little bit more once the sort of part's in there. So this keyboard's got, this synth's got such a brilliant interface. It's kind of like half of it's really traditional. The whole, you know, the cut-off and resonance and whatever is very similar to your classic kind of synths. But then when you get down to sort of this section here, it's a little bit different. Like normally you'd have a full envelope like this one to modify the filter, but this just gives you like kind of a decay envelope and an attack envelope. You can't really mess around with the middle of it too much, but it's really good for doing sort of stabby sort of chord sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll. I'm going to go for kind of like the same sort of vibe as the Man with the Red Face sort of lead on it. So we're going to pull that down so you can hear it's kind of really, it's clicking a little bit on the way in and out. So I'm just going to alter the release as well just to smooth it off. Get a little bit of resonance on it, and then I just want to get some pluck on there, so we'll start about there, and we're just going to move and that gives you that kind of really sort of housey kind of pluck. Pump the volume of that a little bit more by bringing the velocity up from the bottom, so it's not quite as deep on the velocity. One of the tricks I tend to use with, once I've got the sound sort of shaped how I want, which is kind of, that's kind of the sort of thing we're going for. One of the tricks I tend to use with EQing is, if you look at Logic, they give you a mass of presets, but there's never going to be a preset that sort of says, you know, like, man with the red face, lead EQ or something like that. You know, there's never going to be something that exactly like what you're looking for. But if you go for the kind of closest match, I tend to find that's a really good starting point. So with a sound like this, I always go for, if you go into the guitar presets and you go to the electric funk guitar, it gives you this brilliant curve in the kind of presence area of the sound, and that really gives you a nice kind of. It distorts a little bit because it goes quite high up, so you got to pull the gain back down. But it gives you a really nice pluck at the top. Sometimes it's a little bit overpowering, so I'll bring that down a little bit, and then maybe add a little bit of air to the sound as well, just using the top end. And then I'm going to stick this on a 6 dB cut and just roll the bottom end off. But you see, it's such a gradual curve, you don't really lose too much bass on the sound, you just get rid of the muddiness at the bottom. So there's the sound, but obviously that is quite, that's got a lot more bite and a lot more sort of attack to it. Reverbs, again, I mean, I'm really a big fan of Logic Space Designer, and I use the same sort of technique with this as I do with the EQs. I try and go for the closest kind of match to an instrument that will be doing this kind of thing. So again, guitar reverbs are always really good on this kind of plucky sound because they give you a kind of a plate or a slap back kind of effect that's really funky. So if you look at something like, say, there's one here, short guitar plate. I always take out all the reverbs down to 0 first and then roll them on rather than have them come on full and roll them off, because sometimes I think you can trick yourself into having way too much reverb. Although then again, it could be me not having enough reverb. But I'll kind of roll this on now, and it should kind of bring a little bit of life into the sound. I mean, that's about it really. And it just gives you the kind of impression that rather than listening to a software synth, you're listening to kind of a guy in a room or something like that, you know? And we can just try that with the... So it's got a nice groove to it. Another really brilliant trick on Space Designer, which Mark showed me the other day actually, and I've been using it ever since, is right across just in the side here, there's an EQ button, which I'd never noticed before, and this just lets you just EQ the reverb on the way out. So a lot of the time what you can find, if you've got, you know, your keyboard part's got reverb on and your lead's got reverb on, and some of your drums will have reverb on, and maybe your delay, like bass has got a bit of delay or something, and everything kind of gets a little bit muddy at the bottom end, and it's great, you can just roll a little bit of the bottom end off here, just kind of maneuver it round and just kind of clean up the reverb, if you like, so that it's not. You just get the important part, the bit that cuts through, rather than have all the mud as well. The way I was doing it up until I found out about this is I'd literally just switch the channel. So I'd leave that off. Let me just turn that off for the moment. I'd leave that off, and what I would do is I would have the Space Designer at the top, and then the channel EQ second. I mean, which is the other way of doing it, although it does provide the same kind of EQ across both then. But that does the same thing. I'm cutting the bass still off this sound, but it's also taking it off the reverb as well. And that kind of keeps the sound kind of clean as well. But I'm going to do it the other way for this one, because I think it's probably a little bit more lively, a little bit more what I'm looking for. And you'll notice it's kind of, because of the resonance and the kind of punch that we've put on, the presence that's on the EQ, it's still kind of clipping a little bit here. I'm going to compress the sound anyway, because I think when you put compression on stuff, not only does it act as a really good leveler and keeps everything in check, but it also brings up all the bottom frequencies and makes things sound quite rounded. But I don't like overdriving stuff into the compressor, so what I'll do is I always stick a bit crusher on, take all the drive off, smash the resolution up to 24 bit, but then I just leave the downsampling up just as it is. And basically what that does is it doesn't so much act as a limiter, but it just clips everything off when it hits 0. So you'll see now, like, I could push this right up to 90, and I can turn the channel EQ all the way up, and it shouldn't. It'll stay at naught. So you can sort of like drive the sound a little bit harder and get a little bit more volume out of it without it actually pushing into the distorted sort of area, the clip zone, as it were. So that kind of just makes the sound behave a little bit more. And compressor, just again, nearest match is probably. I think there's a really good preset for this kind of sound. This is off one of the old Logic 7, presets, which you have to go through a really long-winded way of installing Logic 8 to do this, but you have to kind of like install Logic 7 first, then install Logic 8, and make sure you don't tick all of the buttons that replace all of your presets with the new ones, and you can get all your old Logic 7 legacy ones back as well. And there's a brilliant one called Pick and Guitar Compressor, which just kind of really adds a really nice kind of pluck onto the sound. So we'll just go with that for now. So it's quite an upbeat sort of vibe. So I'm just going to throw just an offbeat hat in there as well, just to start picking the pace up. For this one, I'm going to reach into deadmau5's library, deadmau5 and Steve Duda's library. Very simple, but it's kind of, sometimes that's all you need. You know what I mean? You can go. I think with a lot of the tech house and stuff that comes out at the moment, there seems to be this a kind of a mentality where you have to plug gaps. Like if there's a gap in the drum beat, I've got to put something in there. I've got to put a click in there, or I've got to put a clave in there. Or and sometimes I think what better than that is the space that you get in between beats. I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff that, like say, like Dubfire or Oliver Hunterman's doing at the moment, like their beats can be really stripped back, and it can just be like, you know, like a sort of a kick and a and a perk and a snare, and that's it. And yet the whole thing just feels moving because there's so much space to groove. So I think probably less is more in the case of this sort of stuff.